Welcome to Planetary. Welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next. It is going to be an amazing journey today. Hope you are ready for liftoff. We are live now. Well, it is an amazing day, evening, night, depending on where you're watching. Welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next. We got some amazing guests today. We have Bill Rimac, and then as well as Bernie Siegel. Who would of you two would like to just share a little bit first of yourself? Let's have Bill at the top. Would you like to just give us a real quick intro, and then next you, Bernie, before we get going?
Oh, thank you for having me. So, my name is Bill Rimac, and I'm a patient advocate, and that's the universe I come from. And it began from me starting as a scientist and then finding when I had a chronic condition, I had to shift gears and become an advocate. Not just for myself, but then find that I had to help others as well along the way. I wasn't the only one facing different challenges. So that's where I've come from, and I run some nonprofit organizations and am a major patient advocate for both healthspan, regenerative medicine, and innovations in science, chronic diseases, and infectious diseases. So that's where what drives me. Okay, thank you.
Great. Next, if you can, Bernie, just share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am an attorney. Don't hold it against me. For the last 20 years, I have been the full-time executive director of the Genetics Policy Institute, now known as the Regenerative Medicine Foundation. I, too, am a stem cell advocate, patient, and was recruited largely by the leaders of the stem cell community, stem cell scientists such as Dolly the Sheep's father, Ian Wilmot, and Rudolph Janisch, and others, to lead the cause for the battle, the stem cell wars for embryonic stem cell research. I was involved in a court case early on that had significance in the field. We created a nonprofit organization and have been involved in every policy fight that has gone on to keep stem cell research alive for freedom of scientific research. But also we've adopted the entire field of regenerative medicine and all the enabling technologies and moving the regulatory needle forward. I work in Washington. I have some reputation as a regulatory person, but not for private clients. This is just for patient advocacy and the science itself. We've expanded our view of the field to even encompass health span and longevity initiatives, of which regenerative medicine is one of the major pillars. And along the way, I created a number of meetings called the World Stem Cell Summit to unify the patient community and government leaders with scientists and industry. And over the course of 20 years, we've done 20 World Stem Cell Summits in different places, including as far away as Shanghai. And the key was by inviting 100 to 150 speakers personally, either by email or telephone calls. Over the years, you get to know the assistants' phone numbers and names. You've been able to build one can build a network. But the core of all of this is patient advocacy, and Bill is a premier patient advocate for his work, and I've done a lot of that work in our field. And now we're moving our sights towards the Dublin Longevity Declaration and health span.
Well, man, Bernie, Bill, we're going to do B squared today. Take it to the higher power. And we are going over today. The focus is, and it's just released off the press, not even more than 7 days old or something. Bernie, I talked to Bill the other day. He was so excited for the topic. And this is, if you're not watching, you're listening. So it's the Dublin Longevity Declaration. We can control age-related morbidity and mortality. Wow, that's a mouthful, and that's could be kind of frightening for many. a little frightening for me. But I don't like arthritis and some of these things. I'm getting old too. None of us are getting younger. So let's start. This is a big topic and excited. So which one of you two wants to start moving on Planetary Health Mars next on this one?
I'll take the
Go
lead
ahead.
if you don't mind. So this is a consensus recommendation and declaration. It was founded by three people. One was Martin O'Day, a longevity uh, enthusiast, and in Dublin, who has the Dublin Longevity Conference. Now it's had just completed its second global meeting. Aubrey de Grey of the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation, and Brian Kennedy, who leads the research aging at the National University of Singapore. All brilliant people. And what they formulated was a declaration to, as a call to arms for a moonshot for longevity biomedical research and all the technologies, not only for healthy lifespan, but also recognizing that it will extend the lifespan as well, all of which are meritorious and will affect all populations. So how do we do that? The declaration calls for this to be a major priority of science. As for myself, having recently, so last October, we formally started the Health Span Action Coalition, which now has about 72 nonprofit organizations involved with it. We started this when the World Health Organization, with its ICD code, gave a code for aging as a medical condition in 2020. WHO recognized aging as a treatable medical condition. To myself, as a stem cell advocate, this was the warning, not the warning shot, the starting gun. The starting gun. Is if medical conditions are treatable, that means we can treat aging. And the understanding, and it's expressed so well in this declaration, which has received endorsements from scientists such as George Church and others, who's really notable in the scientific field. We can actually focus on the health span using the tools of regenerative medicine and all of the other emerging technologies. So that's the beginning.
So, Bill, do you want to take
Sure.
take anything off from that?
Yes, and to really move this needle, uh, creating the dialogue around this in many different multifaceted uh, ways, policy, access, health equity, innovation, um, universal care, all these things that will be necessary as a combined platform to bring this forward, and the policy mindset as a construct for building that development and asking these questions and looking further down the road in terms of what can be done to harness technology, science, and conglomeration of scientific thought to find the solutions and provide the governance and move this together. And that's kind of the position I have, is to try to bring coalitions together and try to get the move actually the different populations and areas of interest to look at this as a concrete method of really progressing in terms of wellness and health, in addressing health span and longevity.
I have
So,
I'm curious, Dublin, and not the United States. I don't want to get political,
right.
but I imagine right now in our political conversation, this is maybe not the most, this is a polarizing issue in the United States, I could imagine from some of the times I've heard stem cell. And maybe is Dublin just a more favorable with innovation, research? How are we keeping this not, and just more scientific and not anyway, I'm putting a mouth out there full of my
Yeah.
mouth. I'll stop.
Well,
Well,
if I can
go
address
ahead.
that.
I think Bernie,
Well,
that's a good one. Yeah.
I had the occasion to speak and be involved with the inaugural Dublin meeting, and our associate chief operating officer of the Health Span Action Coalition is Melissa King, well known in California circles as the first executive director of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine and head of field of operations of the $5 billion initiative. She spoke at the last event that just occurred in September. So reason for Dublin just happens to be that is a conference that served as in partnership with the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation, which is a fairly new foundation. And as that was the locale that brought in leading thought leaders and scientists from around the world, that's where the plan was hatched for the declaration. And to the extent I had a small part of it, I remembered the famous Asilomar conference, you might recall, where at the dawn of the biotechnology industry, the great scientists that had invented the field of recombinant DNA, such as Paul Berg and others were there, David Baltimore. And the conference itself was named after the city. So it's a good benchmark that this really great gathering of scientists and researchers focused on aging were together and formulated this declaration. So it happened to take the name of the city where it was formulated.
So, with this declaration, is there any components or aspects that we should unpack that are really meaningful, that are application based? What would be a good way to help our audience better understand um, more about this opportunity?
So it's interesting that the declaration itself talks about emerging strategies and questions, combinational approaches, novel classes of small molecules, pharmaceuticals, cellular reprogramming, a key part of regenerative medicine, approaches based on species longevity, cell and gene therapy, novel targets, emerging strategies to reverse age-related deterioration of the epigenome, personalizing aging interventions, and the things over the horizon. Basically, how do we reinvigorate the concept of achieving control over these things? And it's this time of converging technologies, like it's the moment where this comes alive. And for me, as a stem cell advocate for many years, and seeing how stem cells are almost a geopolitical force now in regenerative medicine all over the world, and a multi-billion-dollar industry is coming out this, and how it's moving the glacial regulatory system. Now there's so much funding focused on longevity, but how is that going to get to Michael, to the rest of the world? There has to be a focus on what we call distributive justice, health equity to all populations. That's why this is an international movement. One of the reasons Bill is so involved is his own pathfinding in the organization Giant to get vaccines during the crisis to everyone in the world. So proven advocates understand that building coalitions can move the needle. And we are looking to create not only a movement to support science, but a societal movement to advance these goals, a healthy lifespan.
I like what you said, distributive justice. I think that is fascinating because in the end, what did Aristotle say? You're only as good as your least. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to butcher that. But anyway, you got to take care of your citizenry, and so that distributed justice is really, if you have a healthy population, you can really do a lot of good things.
Right, and actually, when you look at that from an equity lens, when we're thinking about all those different aspects to healthy aging, we cut across all economic, political, demographic, and population and issues because it is a global effort. And one thing that really stands out is we're all human beings. We're all part of society, and this will all impact us sooner or later. So uh, I think the saying goes, "We're not getting out of here alive." So we've got to look at this very carefully.
But some of the folks really want to get it to make sure that we stay
True.
around for a long time. Which, to
Right.
that point, that one of the obstacles to the field advancing is the perception that this might just be for millionaires and billionaires, which is not the case. As aging
Okay.
is the common denominator for so many chronic diseases and an accelerator for chronic diseases, if we can solve some of these problems with aging itself, a longer life will take place. And there are also economic benefits, perhaps trillions and trillions of economic benefits if we can uh, lose all those huge costs at end of life and be able to have a healthy lifespan, a health span.
No, I like that because
Mhm.
Walmart isn't doing bad selling to 95% of America, right? I mean, I think yeah, you could have a,
Mhm.
a business for billionaires, but you're going to have just so open it up to everyone. Why not, right?
This is the other thing, Michael. When you think about uh, the regulatory system, reputation and power of the FDA, and things like stem cells and cell therapies are new. They have a different regulatory process, a different manufacturing process, and it's being shoved into the same uh, uh, regulatory process as biologics. And of course, it has to be safe and effective. But with all of these technologies, if we cure a mouse of diabetes and it takes 20 years and billions of dollars to translate that to humans, that clearly is unworkable. So, what is the type of innovation we need in regulation and law? So, that's another goal of the Health Span Action Coalition in tandem with the LEDF, the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation, and those that signed the Dublin Longevity Declaration. The other thing that I would like you to think about, like the audience to think about, what we've done in the coalition is bring on a lot of patient advocacy organizations. They were patient advocates, such as Bill, who is extremely networked into the hepatitis C and liver disease communities. These
Mhm.
all want support for their diseases. They want the National Institutes of Health to fund them. It makes perfect sense. But when you get something all encompassing, such as health span, such as regenerative medicine, such as stem cells,
Mhm.
the rising tide lifts all of the boats. And to empower patient advocates and empower organizations that are cheering on and supporting new technologies, maybe not disease specific. AI is one example. All of these working together as a coalition can solve big problems. But that isn't from some high voice going down or using them as marionettes. You have to build it up from the bottom. This has been the success of the advocacy world that I've seen succeed in stem cells and regenerative medicine and been a part of. And Bill is a longtime colleague um, as well for the work that he's done not only as a stem cell advocate, but for the disease communities, and then most recently in years, amazingly in putting together a global coalition for distribution of vaccines during the crisis. It was amazing.
it seems like this is universal to the applications and the connections. I'm thinking of cancer treatment, neurological conditions. I'm thinking of the amount of venture capital that would fuel just everything and anything that would want to be involved in the applications. I'm very excited by this, and next time when you need someone to go to Dublin to carry your bags, you got someone here.
Okay,
Um,
fantastic.
Well, what are the biggest barriers to this right now that you see?
Bill, take
Yeah,
a shot.
let me give some insight there. I think right now the biggest barriers is something I focus on a lot in my other work, and that is uh, this this inability or uh, uh, lifestyle concern that is actually health illiteracy. And from the point of view of what people understand or can get some context or perspective on and the world they live in, we have to make this discussion something that they can relate to, that is understandable, and is something they can identify in some basic ways. Um, that is not an easy lift when we're looking at the all the various geopolitical concerns going on in the world, the environmental concerns going on, the public health concerns, emergency issues, world conflict, and um, simply the attention people are having to put on their own survival and their present needs. How does this all relate to that? And in that context, um, we have to approach this in very different ways with very different people and in very different demographics, depending on their level of understanding and the challenges they meet in day to day survival. So, one of the ways we are addressing this is to communicate with those in the scientific community, those in community leadership, and those that have outreach and an understanding on health and wellness issues, and proceed to um, build that conversation forward by using those already out there that can understand some of the basic premises of these concepts. And we're making very good progress.
If I can
But
add to
we're at
that,
a very early stage.
sure. And if you don't mind, if I could add a little bit to that,
Sure, go ahead.
with an example. Uh,
Yeah.
Back in the day, in the first meeting of the International Society for Stem Cell Research in Washington, D.C., the field of embryonic stem cell research was under siege. It was being hijacked into the abortion debate in the United States. I was invited to that meeting. And as a cancer survivor at age 48, I had colon cancer, and I'm just turned 74, and I seem to be fine now. But I related to the patient side of it. And when the scientists were talking about freedom of scientific research, and I looked around the meeting, I didn't see any patients there. I didn't see, even though this was a public policy debate, where were the key stakeholders? And how were the scientists, when they would be thrust on television on a debate, how could they match up with skilled, savvy political foes of this? And it turned into a cultural issue. I remember remembering Future Shock with Alvin, written by Toffler, when I was in college in a bygone era. And he talked about the least intelligent of us are going to be the ones that are not going to be able to handle the future and the technologies that are there. And so it was that ignorance of it, that cultural disconnect from this, the fear of these technologies is reinforced over and over again in science fiction and literature. Uh, that's a real fear and real concern. And lofty bioethicists and pundits said that we are going to lose our humanity if some of these technologies move forward. But yet we're in a field now that, humans evolved with little groups of 150, and now we can talk to anyone in the world and see them uh, every day, right? The world has changed so rapidly. And there are going to be a lot of forces against it, a lot of industries, the stakeholders that look at these new technologies as a challenge. It's all going to be there. So we don't want the laboratories to be set on fire by people with pitchforks. So how do you do this? Well, you have to get the people, the population behind it. And it isn't, it's not top down. We have to do it from the standpoint of what our patients need, what our patients want, and make sure that it's just not curing a laboratory animal. We have to move this into humans. And this is a revolution, a scientific revolution that's happening at the first rank, I would submit.
I like how you two are really walking us through the process that's so important that needs to happen. And change is not easy. And all the more important that we have champions like yourself. And I'm sure you're on more committees than Bill has on after his last name, all those acronyms that are really leading the charge. And one thing I notice as a patient in the health system is not designed to fix anyone, and it's really there's a disconnect. So I think with what you're doing, um, that's the complicated that's one of the areas that's so complicated in healthcare is that we have a sick care model in the U.S. at least, and nowhere would you ever be able to pay a mechanic ongoing just to look things up. And but in healthcare, that's fine. They have all these codes, whether they do it or not, and so I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, probably not making any sense, but help me. You guys take the lead. You're talking, but I just feel sort of as a patient, just going to the doctor. You have specialists that are just running their sort of thing, and that's where our healthcare needs more precision medicine with results and really kind of driving. Um, some of these things are 30 years behind with evidence-based procedures. So, anyway, that's where I'm landing the plane. So you guys take it from here.
I think where you're headed there, Michael, is that in this revolutionary approach to wellness, we have to put patients at the center, and the patients have to be part of creating this dialogue and pushing this agenda, because it is people driven. It is people driven. Health is about people. And so when one starts with the discussion amongst patients and patients groups to communicate back and forth with scientists and policymakers and tell them what they need and want, it drives and brings this momentum in research and creating the type of organization and collaborations that build movements, and that's what we have here.
So if I can supplement that, in our journey and in the journey of creating World Stem Cell Summits that move in a different place every year in a region of the country, we encounter health systems themselves that are absolutely critical. Many of them are regional, And they are focused, almost all of them, in some way, shape, or form on the regenerative medicine revolution. Encountering, think about a health system that might have thousands and thousands of patients in their system. All of those patients arguably are potential candidates one day for a clinical trial. And so each of these are competitive entities. At the same time, they have so much control over delivery to the patients. And I think the listeners and viewers might think about the constituents to the things that we're talking about, these new technologies, health span and longevity medicine. And it's already there, the anti-aging movement, the supplement industry, which is largely unregulated in the United States, but it has tremendous power. There is already a major part of society that's watching its diet, it's taking its drugs that might make them lose weight. We're bombarded with all of this and nutrition issues and solutions. So how do we harness this into the hard science that's needed with the technologies at hand? And certainly the healthcare system itself is woeful. Wouldn't it be nice if we had in our bag of remedies a few cells that we could inject and solve cardiac disease, heart disease? Well, if that's going to be the future, when it is, I'm not sure. But, if that's the future, maybe we should get there sooner rather than later, right? Especially if you have as much white hair as I do.
Hey, you got hair.
I didn't want to say that. It occurred to me I should have mentioned.
Well, that was a great thought to imagine cells to help with cardio. Here, a patient, take just 2 of these cells and call me in about 6 months and let me know
No
how your
joke.
heart's doing.
We have those companies out there and those scientists working on that. There's hope for you.
Mm-hmm.
And start eating an apple again.
Yeah. I do want to add one thing, Michael, and that is that wellness and health is more than just simply medical science. It's also our environment, the air we breathe, the water we drink. So our activity, our mental and emotional health. So there's many different approaches and facets that bring about and impact health span. So do not think of this as only what can be done with in a laboratory or done in a physical sense or with devices. All facets of those things that will have an impact on health are in the toolkit. So just keep that in mind.
And another point on that, all new fields are emerging. We have a good friend, Dr. Graham Parker, who is with Wayne State University, and he's the editor-in-chief of 3 important journals, Stem Cells in Development, and others named Nucleic Acid. But he thought up a new journal from Marianne Liebert Publishers. It's called Gene X Environment. I think he calls it Gene by Environment. And when we understand the epigenetic issues and the influence environment has on genetics, it is profound. And now we have a journal focused just on that single subject. I'm sure that it will be all over, and every publisher will have one. It shows the enormity of the issues and challenges. At the same time, we have the tool coming available of artificial intelligence, that if it can figure out a common language to be able to bring all of the science and medicine together, we don't know what progress it can be made. I would submit it would be huge.
Yeah, Bill, I really appreciate how you kind of brought us back to all the social determinants of health, the zip code,
Mhm.
what you eat, what you do, your lifestyle, your attitude. I mean, the evidence is there. Just being involved in some religious, social activity, you live longer. I mean, no
Mhm.
duh. If you live alone and you don't ever get out of the house and you don't have any pets or these sort of things. You want to be if you're depressed and you want to feel better, go to a greenhouse, and all of a sudden with all those plants your mood changes. So all those things are part of your health, so as well as the molecular, the stem cell. So I really appreciate you kind of bringing that back under the whole umbrella of the conversation.
Yeah, and where will we go in the future? As Bernie stated, we don't know what new technologies will emerge because discoveries are made every day. So this is very exciting because it's a matter of looking around the corner and seeing what will happen next, what will emerge, what will someone think of that revolutionizes a different approach to or pathway for resolving a condition or a disease. And this is, or something that helps improve the environment that improves our health. So
I feel like
there's so much to it. Yeah.
it's like we're in the best of times and the worst of times, right? Um, World falls apart, yet we have these wonderful technologies and the way to communicate them around the world. One of the things that advocates can do, and the proof of the taste is in the pudding. When you look at the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine as an advocacy model, and I mentioned our colleague, Melissa King, uh, that was an initiative founded by a fellow, Robert Klein, in California, who had a family member with diabetes and another with Alzheimer's. And he realized that in a field of stem cells under siege at the time, that the state of California had the institutions and the potential resource to fund this research in a way that no other state did. And he organized with others a grand campaign that was called Prop 71 and created a, really a remarkable, uh, a unique state institute for regenerative medicine, the Stem Cell Agency, California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, $3 billion, and $6 billion if you count the taxpayers' bond interest and then all the other philanthropy that came in that built glorious buildings and laboratories all across the state at universities, right? And then when that money was running low, I was very proud to be on the board of Prop 14, and Melissa King uh, was the head of the campaign field operations. Another $5.5 billion of state money just allocated in 2020. So think about that, how remarkable that is, that that was driven at the grassroots level. This is the type of initiative that needs to take place because it involved public education. Education is important. Look at all the disinformation about public health that's been coming out. The barbarians at the gate, right? Uh, it's frightening. So people like Bill, who goes out and educates every day about this, and empowering patients to have a megaphone so their voice is heard. The resources are there. So how can we not do it? But here's the thing. I wanted to mention the shock to me as a layperson was the ultimate backstage pass. It doesn't mean I'm a great scientist. I learned from the experts that taught it to me. But I kind of thought when this stem cell revolution started, and I got involved in 2003, 5 or 6 years, we're going to start seeing some real impact in human beings, maybe some cures. I've been at this 20 years. Now's the time when things are moving much faster. But it took that long runway to realize the challenge of the science, which is beyond comprehension to a layperson. I'm telling you, the science is complex, and these scientists are brilliant. Even though they might not be great debating people on TV, They are doing some really hard work. And of course, many scientists are tremendously good at that. I'm being facetious, but you get the point. It's not. It's more than just the scientist asking and trying to get grant money from the NIH. That ain't the answer. It's to really deliver the goods.
Yeah. And I can add to that sometimes it's the real the voices that people can identify. One of the great things that Bernie did was to enlist the help of Christopher Reeves, and a very famous and well-known speech that he gave at the Academy Awards. But also he gave a very private speech to the American public, the world public for that matter, regarding how we should move forward with regenerative medicine and stem cell research. But these kinds of voices is what it will also help to get this message out and to get people's attention. And there have been heroes in disease and wellness throughout the years, but Christopher Reeves was quite notable in that effort.
And to add to that point, mentioning Christopher Reeve and of course his wife Dana Reeve,
Mm-hmm.
the first major initiative after the court case that I had filed that endeared myself to the scientists was we found out that the United Nations was trying to pass a world treaty against therapeutic cloning, SCNT, which was thought to be a major important advancement in stem cell research. A world treaty. In this case, it was backed by the social conservatives in the Bush administration, and I don't view things in the group as a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a human issue. That was the fact, and it was also the Vatican was very opposed to this, and that was the advocacy issue in the UN that was being steamrolled through to ban this by world treaty, morally condemn it. So through my work and others, we built a counter movement in the United Nations, lobbying the United Nations, working with scientists. So my group, that was called the Genetics Policy Institute then, organized a science conference for the United Nations that presented the science of this and fighting so this treaty would not pass. For that conference, I organized a conference in the Dag Hammarskjöld Auditorium for the scientists to present this to the UN, but I wanted a patient's voice. And at that time, I had made contact with Christopher Reeve, and I invited myself, and he very graciously let me into his home in New Bedford, New York. I flew up for the day from Florida, and we recorded a statement from Christopher Reeve. This was 6 months before he died. And it was an incredibly beautiful statement, basically saying the time is now and there's a moral purpose to using this research. And it became a quite well-known short video that's been played over and over again. And when I was sitting across a sofa from him, and at that point I was 18 months into doing this work, I said, this man understands what I'm doing. And I was so moved that he would take someone as new as I was to the field and put himself out there. I will never forget it. So that inspiration, it was one of the sparks that ignited this whole prairie fire of science and achievement that we have today at the cusp of healing some of the most horrendous diseases.
That's a great share. So we're coming towards guess we got about six some minutes. Is there any sort of thing that you, Bill, or Bernie feel that needs to be shared today? Not tomorrow, today.
Well, I'll start with saying that I think anyone who's involved with some kind of organization that is dealing with the the human element of life, survival, health, and longevity should come to the Healthspan Action Coalition website and go to the page where it says contact, and Healthspan is Healthspan Action, one word, .org, healthspanaction.org, and simply fill out the information there and their message, and contact us, because we are very interested in bringing as many stakeholders and those interested in helping move this movement in the direction that will reach the world.
And I'll add, if you want to sign the Dublin Longevity Declaration online, DublinLongevityDeclaration.com, do so. You don't have to be some lofty scientist. If you're not, it doesn't matter. Read the declaration. Of course, if you have any questions about it, you can certainly email the authors or contact Bill or I through the healthspanaction.org website. It's a meritorious statement. It's a declaration. To my mind, it's a call to action. By all means, educate yourselves. It's more than taking a vitamin C tablet in the morning. And wish everyone will stay healthy and understand that they have a stake in this in a big way. And organizations and individuals can empower themselves. They empower themselves by banding together in coalitions. And if you don't feel your voice is heard in the coalition, speak louder, because it's a bottom-up world that will move the politics and move the regulations, and in a surprising way. All you have to do is take action, and that's what Bill and I are activists.
That is great. I really appreciate the two of you coming on today and just sharing more about stem cell research, everything that's coming on, the excitement, patient advocacy, the involvement, the necessary, all the research that's gone on, everything of your efforts and all that's to come, and how our audience can get involved. It's been amazing.
Well, thank you, Michael. We enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll speak for myself. I think Bill did too.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's about that time. Friends, it has been a great journey today on Planetary Health First, Mars Next. Follow us for more on Planetary Health First, Mars Next. Until next time, peace be with you.